Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Straighten us out a little bit here. Today, we're in tutoring. We're talking about the customary system and the metric system. Now, as I have reached out to the leaders of our great country and asked them to change to the metric system, since we're one of 3 countries that use the customary system, I think, come on now. We can do the metric system. Just escúchame, por favor. What? All right. The metric system is easy to work with because it's simply moving a decimal point. You do not, and I mean do not, have to memorize the stuff because you're going to have a formula chart. So here we're looking at milliliters and liters. So if I look at my formula chart, I see that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. And we know, which one's smaller, Andrea, milliliter or a liter?
Milliliter.
Good. So we're changing what we know is the milliliter, which is smaller, to what we don't know, which is the liter. So if we're going from smaller to bigger, we divide. Looking at my formula chart, I have 1,000. Between milliliters and liters, it's 1,000. So I'm going to take 6,000 and divide it by 1,000.
I know this.
But first,
I know it too.
let me ask you. Tell me your name, sweetheart. Bailey? All right, Bailey. I'm going to point to the digits in this number. Okay? You tell me when I get to the ones place. Ones place. The decimal point's always behind the ones place. So my decimal point is right there. When I'm dividing, in this instance, I'm going to make this number smaller. And since I said the metric system is simply about moving the decimal point, all I got to do is move it 3 times to the left. So 1, 2, 3. So 6,000 milliliters equals 6 liters.
Oh!
I didn't really have to do any math. If I can count, and I know my left and right, the metric system, that's all it is. Counting and knowing your left and right.
That's so easy. Thank you.
Now, we have, escúchame. Now we have 6 meters to how many ever centimeters? 6 meters to centimeters. Meters are bigger. We know the meters. We're changing to centimeters. So now I have to look at, so we're going to multiply. What we know, changing to what we don't know, means we're going to multiply. So now all I need to know is how many centimeters are in 1 meter. And Ilaria, since you're up there, can you tell me how many centimeters in a meter?
100.
100.
Where? Bro.
100 centimeters in a meter.
Oh, the meter.
Right there on the formula chart. 100 centimeters in a meter. I already said we know the meters. We're changing to the centimeters. So bigger to smaller means we multiply. So we are going to multiply this by 100. Daniel, this is a whole number. The number 6. Where is my decimal point? Behind the 6. The 6 is in the ones place. My decimal point goes behind the ones place. And since I'm needing to make 6 bigger, because I'm multiplying it by a whole number, I'm going to move my decimal point to the right. So it needs to go to the right. How many times, Kendall?
It needs to go to the right 3 times. No. 2 times.
2 times. So if I move it from there to there, that's once. There to there, that's twice. And I can't just leave 6, nothing, nothing.
Nothing.
I can't just leave those blanks there.
Zeros.
So Daniel says I got to put zeros there.
Yep. So do I.
So 6 meters equals 600 centimeters.
I got that. Is that
Now this is going to show us
Yes, yes.
why the customary system is a little bit more difficult. Because if all you have is this formula chart, we're going from gallons to pints. So we're talking about capacity. And if we look in the custom, it doesn't tell us how many pints are in 1 gallon. If all you know is the formula chart, you're going to have to change from gallons to quarts and quarts to pints. Gallons to quarts and quarts to pints. Oh my gosh, this number keeps calling me.
Is it random? Scam likely.
That's the 7th time they've called me. Sit down.
Scam likely.
What if it's Donald?
Alright, so using the formula chart, you're going to have to go through a couple steps in order to get there. If you have this G, which you're not on a test, unless you memorize it and can make it,
Yeah.
then you'll be fine. So we have 8 gallons equals how many pints? So if I go over here, and this whole thing is 1 gallon, the Q's are quarts, the P's are pints, the C's are cups. And I have 8 gallons. Well, 1 gallon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pints. 1 gallon has 8 pints. So if 1 gallon has 8 pints, how do I figure out how many pints are in 8 gallons?
Pretty much all you do
Multiply by
is 2.
8.
Bro,
Multiply by 8.
what?
Well, 1 gallon has 8 pints. So if we did gallons and pints, 1 gallon, 8 pints, right? You can see that here.
2 gallons.
2 gallons, 16 pints. 3 gallons, 24 pints. And what I'm doing to get from gallons to pints is I'm multiplying by 8.
So 1 times 8.
And so 8 times 8 is
64.
64. So 8 gallons equals 64 pints.
Yep. That's way easier.
Not if you don't know this. You have this memorized?
Yeah.
I'm going to take it down and ask you to write it tomorrow.
Sure. Try me.
Yes. Try me.
No.
All right. Now we're going from ounces
Cups. Cups.
to cups.
Which I can.
Which is smaller, ounces or cups?
Ounces.
Ounces are smaller because there's 1 cup equals 8 ounces.
Oh, true.
So ounces are smaller.
Oh, wait, I was.
So we know the ounces. We're changing to cups. So we're going from a smaller measurement to a bigger measurement, which means it's divide.
Oh, I did it wrong.
And if I go up here, 1 cup equals 8 ounces. So I'm going to divide 64 by
16.
8.
You tried.
And 64 divided by 8 is?
8.
8.
So 64 ounces equals 8 cups. Let's move over here to, let's move over here to weight. Shh, gentlemen. We have 6 tons we're trying to change to pounds. What do we need to know in order to solve this, Maddie? What do we need to know? We look at the formula chart, and we go here, weight and mass. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. So 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds.
Yes. Oh, that's easy. That's easy.
Okay? So if 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds, Maddie, how do I figure out how much 6 tons is? Multiply by 6 times 2,000. Because we're going from tons, which is bigger, to pounds, which is smaller, which means we multiply. And Maddie, 6 times 2,000 is? Let's do this. Let's do this, Maddie. I'm going to take these 3 zeros, and I'm just going to bring them down here. And then all I have to do is multiply 6 times 2, and I get 12.
That's easy if you know your stuff.
12,000.
If you know your stuff. So I changed my meters. Metric thing is easier.
So now we have 8 liters to blank milliliters.
1,000.
Okay, we're going from liters to milliliters, which means we multiply. Tell me your name, sir. Ethan. Thank you, Ethan, for joining us today. I need to know what, Ethan?
You have to do 8 times 1,000.
Where in the world did your 1,000 come from? Good, because there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter.
Yes.
Liter's bigger, it's a milliliter smaller, which means we multiply.
Yes.
We're going to multiply by 1,000.
Yes.
You can multiply anything by 1,000 real easily. 8 times 1,000, Ethan, is 8,000.
Why would you need that?
That's a quart. 6 pints to blank quarts. Next, we have back to the customary system. We're changing from pints to quarts. We could look over here and see if we have it. Oh, good. 1 quart equals 2 pints. We're going from pints to quarts. Pints to quarts.
Oh.
Divide. So I'm going to divide. Unless I have this memorized, I can say 6 pints. 2, 4, 6 pints. And that takes up 3 quarts. Or I can divide by 2. And I'm going to get 3 quarts.
8 quarts. Or, yeah. 2 gallons.
Now I'm changing from quarts are smaller to gallons, which are bigger. So it's going to be dividing. And I'm going to divide by what?
You would divide, yeah.
By 4, because there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon.
Yes.
And 8 divided by 4 is
2.
2.
Yeah, 2.
Traditionally, on the test questions I've seen and I've created, the most difficult is changing in the capacity, how much something holds. Because in weight, you're just doing tons and pounds. In customary, you're doing miles, yards, and feet, and inches. So those are all fairly easily interchangeable. But this is going to be the most difficult if you have to convert in the capacity for the customary system. Let me show one example with some, I neglected to put any decimal points in these problems, but I want to show 1 or 2 or 17 with decimals in it. So let's take 3.28 meters equals blank centimeters. 3 and 28 meters equals blank centimeters.
I know.
So Bryce, which is bigger, a centimeter or a meter? A meter. And I know the meters. So I'm changing what I know is the meters to what I don't know, which is the centimeters, which means I'm going to multiply. And Bryce, how many centimeters are in 1 meter? 100. So I'm going to multiply this by 100. Now, as I said eons and eons ago, back when I was a young person, where all we have to do in the metric system is move the decimal point. I have 3 and 28 multiplying it by 100, which means I move the decimal point which direction? To the right. How many places? 2. 2. So 1, 2. So that would be 328. So leaders of our great country, if you're watching, please, escúchame, change to the metric system. Let's go from
Stop texting.
No. No.
I'm just kidding.
All right, 328 and 6/10 milliliters. We're changing to liters. Milliliters to liters. So, Bassett, which is bigger, a milliliter or a liter? A liter's bigger. So that means I know the smaller one. I know the milliliters. I have to change to the liters. So that means I'm going to divide. The Bassett, what am I going to divide by? By 1,000. Because there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Bassett, when I'm dividing by 1,000, I'm moving my decimal point which direction? Left. And how many times am I moving my decimal point? 3 times. Because I'm dividing by 1,000. Knowing that it has 3 zeros helps me out. So it's going to go from behind the 8. 1, 2, 3. And my answer is going to be 3,286 10,000ths of a liter. It's just moving the decimal point.
Probably gonna have to rewatch this.
You can rewatch it. I'm a post it.
That's a great song.
Boom! Shakalaka, peace out. God bless, love you. To sometimes save the bees.